It's Derek Weeks, and I am here live with some of our product owners at Sonatype. We're going to talk a little bit about today about our road to continuous delivery at Sonatype. It's a journey that we've been on, and we're going to continue on. And to best talk about that journey for a couple of minutes, I've invited Jamie Whitehouse, Justin Young, and Michael Prescott onto the show today. So thank you guys for joining us. So we set up a couple of different items to walk through to tell you about the journey that we've been on. So I'm going to kick this one off with Michael Prescott. You're going to take the first one about a small team concept that we have here at Sonatype. Tell us a little bit about that.
Sure thing. Well, first I joined Sonatype about 4 years ago. Some background for me: I started it on the engineering team. It was a pretty top-notch gang. It took me a while to find my feet there, but it's been great to work here. As we grew, I moved into the product owner role, which is about 18 months ago, which is what you've got me doing today. So,
and you're product owner for which product?
For Nexus repository, yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So yeah, small teams. One of the things that we realized we had to do is figure out a way to scale our organization. Sonatype is expanding, and for a long time we've been able to get away with kind of village communication. So we had to figure out how we structure ourselves to basically handle scaling. How do we continue to deliver software? How do we up the rate at which we deliver software? What we settled on was breaking the team, and the Nexus repo team at the time was about 12 people. It has since expanded, and we've broken into 3 separate tiny teams. So these can be quite tiny teams. But we've focused them around subject matter expertise. So we've got each feature area that we're currently developing has been assigned to one of our 3 teams. So we got a platform team, we got a formats team, and a core feature team. And I should give a shout out to our product experience team, which has also been lending a hand with us. So I think the first benefit from that is the focus on subject matter concentration. So there's a number of benefits here, but one is that it's easier to onboard. You know, the Nexus repository code base is big. It does a lot of things. It integrates with a lot of systems. So it's a lot easier as you come up to speed if you only have to learn a smaller portion of that immediately. There's also this really interesting kind of inverse network effect, which is all of our code changes get reviewed by at least 2 developers. So if you find you're part of a small dedicated team that's working on a specific feature, you get a lot less context switching when someone asks you for help. But at a high level, zooming out a little bit, we really use this to guide our investment. There's a lot of things we'd like to be able to do now, but there's also a whole portfolio of kind of less urgent but equally important things that we know we have to get to, and we found that this is a really great way to handle that by standing up a team to deliver on those deliverables. It helps the urgent stuff from kind of sweeping those things aside, and then we're never able to make traction. So, you know, what does this have to do with continuous? We see this as kind of a foundation because each little team has its own mini roadmap, and they're each responsible for driving the releases that puts out those features that they're created, which gets them to people faster.
Yeah, you know, it's a great point that you make about onboarding people into the tinier teams with kind of less to learn up front. You know, Sonatype expanded its employee base by 40% last year, so we have a lot of new people. I think we see that at the engineering meetups when we all get together, that the room is bigger than it was the last year, and we're hiring a bunch more, so it's going to be bigger again this year. But you know, it's a really good way to bring people onto the team and not overwhelm people from the start and allow us to continue the cadence.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, to onboard effectively, there's the technical aspect, but there's also the social aspect. You really need to know, who do I turn to get help? Who knows a lot about X? And so if all those people are, we're all remote, so to say that they're close to you is kind of funny, but you know, in a connected sense, they are close to you. And so when all those people are readily at hand, it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. So, so speaking of cadence, Jamie,
Yeah.
why don't you introduce yourself and let's talk about kind of the impact of our moves and kind of transformation on the cadence of releases and quality of releases.
Sure thing. I've been the product owner and I guess development manager for the IQ group, everything around IQ server for the last while. This year it's changed. I'm now just the product owner. We have a manager for the engineering side now, which has been awesome. So all during the changes last year, I get to do both sides of it. So I guess it's a discussion amongst myself in that way. In the beginning of 2016, one of the kind of organizational initiatives that we had that wasn't related to product functionality was how do we get functionality out to our users sooner? How can we realize value sooner for people? Prior to 2016, so all through 2017, the IQ product line was on a 8-week release cycle. And that was pretty quick by some standards in the industry for an on-premises based product. But we also found it still wasn't quite quick enough, right? There'd be some features that we could get done in a couple of weeks or overlapping features, but yet they'd be stuck waiting for a release for another 6 weeks. And even prior to that, in 2014, we were on a feature delivery based cycle, and that was pretty sporadic. We had some releases, they probably averaged on four months to do a release. We've had some extremes where it was 11 months. So we just kept learning from that. So in 2016, we switched. Throughout that year, we did about 1.5 releases a month. And that basically translates to more value to our users, more values to our internal Sonatypers as well, the people going out in the field, our customer success engineers, people like that. And I think one of the biggest challenges is not every release is valuable for everybody, right? But you get to pick what's valuable for you and move forward with the release.
Yeah, I think that's that thing about getting value to customers sooner,
Yes.
Is an important part of what we achieved. And we were talking about before we got on air here, you don't always please everyone, but you are getting more to market faster. So hopefully you're pleasing a set of people with each release, maybe not pleasing everyone with every single feature or release. So, Justin, let's jump over to you. Why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your team, and then we'll talk about kind of what have we automated and what tools are used at Sonatype on our continuous journey.
Fantastic. Hi, I'm Justin Young. I run our tool integrations team. We've been around for a couple of years, but we were incorporated pretty around the same time as the business initiative to provide continuous delivery to our software. We were and have been very small, so it allowed us the flexibility to make some choices and mistakes as we came along the journey, and kind of set the direction for other teams who could come in and make sure it scales appropriately. But when we were trying to figure out what tools to use and how to automate things, we were really focusing on existing processes. I've been at Sonatype for a long time and have seen how we develop software, and expectations, and jam them into continuous delivery. So some tools work very, very well. Jenkins has their build pipelines. It was made to kind of be able to do CD. And some tools like the Maven release plugin, not so much. But together we can we kind of massage them into one pipeline. So let's see, automated, what tools? Okay, so what practices? We've always really valued testing at Sonatype, and it wasn't a big deal to add more tests to our products to ensure that we can fully automate the delivery without having to have a manual test process. I think that was an easy step. The big step was giving trust over to the pipeline and knowing that you can trust robots to push it out and do your tests. And even if a test failed, CD allows you to push another fix out very quickly. So kind of allowing a little less control and knowing that you can make fixes was a big change in our automation. For tools, I talked about the Maven release plugin. We came we have an expectation for versioning in our bits, and so when Maven pulls stuff down, we have to have lexical ordering, stuff like that is important for versions. So we would try to settle on a semantic version that would still fit requirements like lexical versioning or the provenance, knowing where a build came from, but still fit within our flow and worked with the release plugin. So using the release plugin, we were able to kind of dictate what version we wanted to go with. We use major minor, but then we were able to jack in a commit date, a release date, and a commit ID for provenance on the end to provide some information on top of just the version itself. And we're fairly successful for it. We'll see in the future how people consume our bits and our plugins and learn from them and make changes. Like I said, with continuous delivery, you have the ability to make changes very, very quickly.
Yeah, no, I think that, it's, I just thought back to what you were saying is, trust of robots. A lot of what happens in continuous delivery and DevOps is that kind of, trust in robots or trust of the systems to actually do these things. But I think that, something that I've been preaching lately certainly is not only is automation helping you move forward faster, but in DevOps or continuous delivery, there is a feedback loop. And if something is not working well, you're getting that feedback about, went out and it broke, or it went out, it's not performing well, or it went through that test and it failed, and you're getting automated feedback that says that didn't work, time to try again. And I think a lot of people think about automation as just the forward moving parts, but they kind of leave off the feedback loop part, which are just as important, because not everyone releases perfect code every single time they pass commit, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we talked about tools that were made for this in Jenkins. By having a coded configuration, you can recreate those builds and make the adjustments and to ensure that your final product meets your expectations and that what happened. Yeah.
So Jamie, I think I'm throwing it back to you here with challenges that are still on the horizon. So, everyone has a journey to continuous, and I don't think anyone ever finishes it. As you think about kind of where we are in our evolution, what kind of new things ahead do you see, that you'd like to plug into the projects as we manage them, or the releases as we manage them?
Yeah, I think there's a few. So there's a few that we're still kind of overcoming, and there's some that I think would be good for us to address or keep looking forward to. One of the ones that I think we're still overcoming is version numbering, as Justin alluded to. Like, how do you create a version number when you're constantly releasing, and what does that mean if people are thinking about compatibility? So on the IQ side, we basically just decided it's a rolling release number. There's no semantic versioning. It doesn't make sense. We're not a library. We're not a framework. We're constantly adding value throughout the year, so it's a rolling number. And that comes up a fair amount with some of our customers and users about, well, what does this number mean? Is it compatible with this older version? Is it compatible with this IDEA plugin or something like that? And by the same notion, it also can cause trouble as we move forward. At 1.5 releases a month, it's closer to 2 releases a month, our release notes get kind of long. So that's one of our bigger challenges, is how do we convey what we're releasing, what we have released, and when is a good time for you to upgrade. Some organizations upgrade every 6 months, every 9 months. Some organizations are upgrading a lot more frequently and keeping the same cadence as us. So how do we provide the right granularity of information to address all of those audiences? That's certainly a big challenge, and tied with that is our help site, our documentation. So as our product's evolving, and we adopted this process, one of the things that we switched from was a help guide per version, which is what we used to do, to a single help guide for all versions. So if you're using a version from last year and you're looking for help on it, how do we maintain that existing state from a year ago, even though that product functionality has evolved? And how do we convey that to you? How do we make sure you get the right answers while all the newcomers get the most appropriate information as well? I think that's probably one of our most significant challenges with moving as rapidly as we are.
Yeah.
I think Jamie brought up something that's really interesting too, in that we give our teams a lot of autonomy, and you can see even here that there's a difference in decisions on how we did versioning between the integrations and the IQ team. So to ensure that there's convergence as we go along, and we use these lessons and we all come together and find best practices, and maybe there are things that are going to be different between the teams, but make sure that there's convergence amongst the big things, so that as a company we're able to put our product forward in the same light.
Yeah, that's a great point, Justin. I mean, 3 different teams represented here, and you guys don't have to have the same identical mirrored processes or practices throughout, but you got to connect on the big things, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's fabulous. I think a lot of people will appreciate hearing that, because I'm sure they work in places with different departments or different teams that are not always aligned, but perfect alignment isn't necessarily required. So, Michael, back to you. When we talk about better serving our customers through, what we're doing, how is the move to continuous kind of help support that?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about getting features out to customers faster. Whether that's a top line feature, whether it's just a bug fix. We hate shelfware. We don't like paying the investment to have something built, constructed, and tested, and then we sit around waiting for the big release. Let's get it out to people as soon as possible. And there are other kind of hidden synergies in this. So, you don't need separate processes for patches or, different deployment methods if you can just wait a week and you'll get the feature out in the main release. So I think an example of that is Yum. How we might have done that a couple of years ago would have been to deploy that as a big single feature in the end of 2018 and into 2017 and 2018. We delivered Yum functionality over 3 releases so far, and a 4th one's coming. So I have to acknowledge that this is frustrating for some users that are waiting for the thing that's in the 4th release, because they have to sit through all these announcements that don't apply to them, to underscore Jamie's point. But it does mean that if we get the order right, and we certainly try hard to do that, the customers who are able to use proxy functionality, which is what we put out first, can use it the very second it's done without having to wait for anything else.
Yeah, no, I think that's key, and part of what you do here is you can't have a big release that does everything, but you are delivering that value to market faster. And I think we've all seen in enterprise software, not everyone uses every bit of every feature that's ever released. So when you prioritize kind of what gets out there, it also allows our user base to start playing with or testing with that particular feature, that aspect of it. Otherwise we could throw out this big release and say, hey, we want feedback on all of these different capabilities, and then you never get it. So even for the product team, it can allow that kind of faster feedback.
Yep, that feedback is really useful when people are actually using something. It's a lot different than just a trial. So if we're able to put out actually usable software that people can play with, they know what their needs are, and if they tell us, we just count them all up, and it gives us a chance to pivot before we're done with a big initiative.
Yeah. So let's go around the board. We'll start with Jamie, then Justin, then Michael. What one lesson have you learned along this journey that you would share with others out there?
In one word, I guess 2 words: be fearless. Be fearless while offering a forum for people to provide feedback and air their concerns. But the reception that we've had both internally and with customers has been overwhelmingly positive, to reinforce. Whereas at the beginning, I was very nervous about pushing the team to release as frequently as we could, be it days, not 8 weeks.
Yeah. Justin, what's your lesson?
Jamie kind of stole mine, but I'll say it in different words. That trusted relationships allow mistakes to be made. And to use a little anthropomorphication, trusted pipelines allow you to make mistakes. So even it may just be in team dynamics, and it can also be in your continuous delivery pipeline. But just ensure that you trust everyone to do the right thing, and you trust your pipeline to do the right thing. And then when mistakes happen, you know that they were trying to do the best.
Yeah, that's you know, trust is important, especially on teams, especially when you're moving fast, and communications are key to that. And I know we've you know, Mike Hansen just blogged about, you know, how we work in remote organizations and do it so well. So I'll put the link below this video to that, so you guys can read, or anyone viewing can read a little more on that, how we do that. Michael, what about you? Lesson learned.
I think this is one of those areas where we seem to agree on the big items. I'm going to say implementing process change is like building with dynamite. You know, you have an objective. You can see, like, I think the world will be better if we get to this state. You got a belief it's the right thing to do, but really the teams do all of the work and they pay all the costs. High-performing teams, they come up with their own processes. The way those members of those teams have gelled one another is a key ingredient on what makes them a high-performing team. And to get to a different situation, you have to disrupt all that, and you pay all that in cost. So these kinds of changes take time, and if you're serious about it, you need to give time in the schedule to get it right.
Awesome. You guys, I know it's only been 15 minutes or so that we've been on here, but great discussion. I think really valuable for those people that we have out in our audience listening. So thank you very much for hopping on for a quick conversation. One of the things we haven't promoted enough at Sonatype is one of our Twitter handles, @SonatypeDev. So if you do want to reach our dev team, there are a number of different ways to do it, but one that we're using quite often now is on Twitter @SonatypeDev, and you can find us there, ask any questions, and you know, you should get a pretty quick response as to where you can find something or where you're looking for something. So again, Michael, Jamie, Justin, thank you very much for participating today, and we will talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.